feel like I should have tissues nearby. That's right. All right, anyway, okay, we're recording. It is Thursday, January 31st. I will try not to sneeze on the meeting. This is a meeting to check in on design and usability tasks. I'm sorry I was out for the last 2 weeks. I was both sick and out of town, but I heard a lot of amazing things happen while I was gone. So thank you everybody for continuing to do all of the awesome work, and I'll try and cover the things that I know about in the agenda today. Okay, so starting off on backdropcms.org, module names and layout pages new ones will get launched soon. I know we've had feedback, at least via the contact form on backdropcms.org, where people are asking about specific modules, which is making it very clear that we have increased interest in Backdrop and that our find modules that are available for Backdrop that were Drupal path on the site is not working the way we want it to. We want them to be able to get that information directly from the website without having to ask. So that's coming soon. That's issue number 442 on the backdropcms.org queue. The next item is item number 422, which is to get a working sandbox tool up so that we don't have to send people to Pantheon. That's creating a little confusion for people who don't know what Pantheon is, where they have to create a Pantheon account first before they can get their demo. So while I was away, Nate created a demo system using Tugboat, which is not currently hooked up to the homepage, but it does already work. So the URL for that is backdropcms.org/demo/create, and there's a link in today's agenda. I'll throw one into the Hangout as well. And this we're planning to link up from the homepage so that you can click the try a demo button. It'll take you to this page, which just says it's going to take a couple seconds to fire up. It says a few minutes, but it's setting very low expectations. It usually only takes about 10 seconds. It'll create a sandbox and it'll give you your very own disposable Backdrop site that will last. It currently lasts for a week, but we're thinking of shortening that down to 48 or maybe 24 hours. You can log in. It's exactly as Backdrop would be if you were to install it yourself. So it's a sort of a test drive on an empty site. And as we talked about before, this is going to be really great to have a demo site that is an exact copy of what you would get if you installed Backdrop, but it's not necessarily the most compelling sales tool because you miss a lot of what it is that Backdrop can do if you only see what it is as a blank slate. Like you're looking at a blank canvas, not at a fully featured website that can do lots of interesting things. So we had talked about, I think 2 weeks ago, or maybe even more than that, ideas for content or structure or something that we could provide people in a demo site. And Luke, it sounds like you've got some ideas about that.
Here we go. Yeah, no, I was pondering what to do that, and it gives me time. It's one of those things that it seems really easy until you like dig into it and they're like, oh, well, there's all sorts of difficulties with that. So like starting off as kind of like the most obvious, but like boringly obvious thing is, Drupal now has sample content that they've put there that comes installable with Drupal 8.6. And so I pulled it down and looked at that content and looked at it, and it's simple and easy. And so just kind of as like a placeholder until we find something, we could actually just use that. And the main benefit of that, well, there's two main benefits. Well, one is that it's public domain, or it's within compatible licenses, so we can.
What kind of content is it? Is it like a basic page in an article, or do they have different types, like content types?
They've created one new content type for recipes, and then they've got fields for different aspects of the recipes, and they have a taxonomy. So it's basically the simplest possible structured content that goes beyond like a WordPress post in terms of using the structured content that our architecture allows and encourages. So there's that. But then kind of desperately not wanting to just do that. thought about like what other kinds of things, and pondering this, I came with all sorts of really boring suggestions. I thought about like a periodic table. It's like, no, that would kill anybody before they got through it. And I thought about like U.S. states. I'm like, oh no, that's political, or like presidents, for example, would be a nice thing, but it's geospecific. It's third rail, dangerous topics. Who knows who's not going to like it? It seemed trouble. So pondering this, I sort of came up with two things that I think we could do. Just again, as like straw man, until we think of something better. One has to do with our mascot. I thought of doing a little site about dragons, like what a kindergartner would do if they're like, show me dragons. I mean, we could now. It's topical. It's dragon. We've got our own dragon. There's plenty of other dragons through history, and there's pictures and stories and times and dates and authors and enough sort of metadata that could be sort of pulled around. That could be kind of interesting. My main worry with that is copyright considerations. If I'd want to have like Smog in there, and I wonder if like Disney's gonna sue or stuff like that. Like most of the good dragons have teams of lawyers associated with them. So I'd want to like tread carefully and step through that one.
Yeah.
The other one is less fraught with copyright danger. And is, like your other obsession would be kitties.
I thought you were going to say horses.
Well, that could be too. And on cue, here we go. So who knows? Maybe it's a little pets thing, and that has the benefit of being accessible. It gives somebody, like we've figured out that the main purpose of the internet is to share cat pictures, right? So here you go. So if somebody's installing Backdrop, and you'd be like, so do you want the cat pictures? Click, okay, here we go. And while you're looking at the pictures of the things, then you can see how the structure works, and that seems sort of accessible. Anyway, so that those are my sort of three strawman concepts.
Interesting. Yeah, I think there's a way we could come up with some kind of metadata around cats. Like one of the websites I do is for puppy training. And so when you log in, you like create a profile for your dog, and you have to put in like its age and its veterinary information and whether it's been vaccinated and all of this stuff. And we could pull all of that kind of metadata for a dog. And like, well, what applies to all pets? And then we could have like a pet content type. And then we could have like a pet type where it's like dog, cat, bird, horse, dragon, or whatever. And then we could put in
ooh, I like the dragon.
And then we could put in like a photo field, and we could provide a bunch of sample photos that were, specifically optimized for web, so they don't take up a lot of space. We could even have this be, here's another crazy idea. We could even have the sample content be a module that was promoted, so that when you went to the module installer, it would say like install sample content. And then all of those photos wouldn't have to necessarily ship with the default Backdrop install,
right?
Because the module installer's in it. And if it was right at the top, that would be something that would be really useful for people to install that way. And then you could set it up and be like, oh, it gets like a pet library install, and you're like, okay, there's cat photos. I can see them in a grid. I can see them as teasers. I can see them, we put in a bunch of default views with it too. You could have an administrative listing that shows like your cat vaccination record date or whatever it is. And I feel like there's a way that we could create sort of a compelling experience around fake data in a way that might map to something realistic that people are doing, where they're like, oh, I have recipes. I need to show them in a grid, and I need to show them in a table, and I need to show an administrative listing, and I need to show what teasers look like. And then because we have all these fields on it, they could say, oh, I can see how like this is a select list, and this is a checkbox, and this is a date field, and this is an email, and all of that stuff that we provide doesn't exist on an article or a page could be a part of that, where I don't even think we need a taxonomy, because we have tags in the module or in the default content types, but we could put something more structured, like a breed list or something. I don't know, if we wanted to give them options of what that might look like. But yeah, I think that's a great idea. I also think we could poll all of the people who are contributing for photos of their animals and data about their animals. It would also be like sort of a little tribute to anyone who wanted to work on Backdraft. You'd be like, hey, you know, maybe you can't contribute code, but you can put a photo of your cat in here. And everyone will be like, yes, okay, here's my cat. Here's her name. Here's what she eats for breakfast or whatever it is. Yeah, and you could totally have you could have that work.
All right. Well. As I was sort of hoping, this idea seemed to have just written itself. All right.
Plus, it also, I think, is something that's like kind of, you know, the thing that's great about recipes is that everybody eats, right? So it's going to be universal for everyone around the world. I also think that same sort of thing is like, well, what is common in daily life for people all around the world? And like every culture has some kind of pet, whether it's, you know, cats or not, or dragons is totally variable. But I think it's the kind of thing that
spiders, koala bears, you know.
I think it's a great idea.
All right. Well, there we go.
Yay. Thank you for thinking that through.
Now I got to prototype it. So, you know, hold your breath.
Yay, content types and fields. Views. All right, moving on to Backdraft the product, just in time for Gregory to wake up and join our meeting. He should be here shortly. I'll try and cover some of the other issues that haven't gotten updates since, or I am not sure where the status is. For Backdraft Core, issue number 495 is creating a dashboard. That was something that got really close for Backdraft 112, but we pushed it to 113 because we wanted to add a couple of more features and make sure that it was working as well as we wanted it to for release. And that's something I think is going to be a big user experience bonus. So if anyone has thoughts on what would be really valuable to have on a dashboard, we're currently working off of a contrib module from Drupal 7. And some examples of other sites like WordPress and Joomla that have useful dashboards and what they provide. But that needs feedback, and then testing probably as well on actual pull requests that's there. Next is Save Draft in Core. This is issue 3157. There's a contrib module called Save Draft that just changes the way the content creation form works so that all of the radio buttons that let you select what kind of content you're creating, whether it's draft or scheduled, those become buttons that are very clear at the bottom of the page. They're like, I'm going to save a draft, I'm going to publish it now, or I'm going to schedule it for later. So it's just kind of a user experience cleanup on how that works. And I would love to get that cleanup in Core to make that process easier on people. The next one is promoted modules on the installer. This is something we were just talking about with the, and I would love to get that cleanup in Core, make that process easier on people. Uh-oh, we've got a leak. We've got a leak and a meowing cat who's bringing me fish. It's nice. Yes, I'm proud of your fish. He's very excited about his fish. Anyway, sorry about the meowing. The exciting issue that I want, uh-oh, Gregory is awake, but he's driving, so he's not going to come to the meeting. Although the issue I wanted him to talk about was all of the changes to user roles, which he's been doing research on. He found a bunch of issues for Drupal 7 based mostly on feedback from usability studies about user roles and their names. In particular, anonymous, authenticated, and administrator might not be the best names for those roles. Anonymous is something that I struggled with when I first started with Drupal. It's a little bit of a strange term for a logged out user. Authenticated is a term that's used across most software platforms for people who are logged in. So it's good that it has the technical consistency. But I've also, in training classes, had to explain to people that anonymous is logged out, authenticated is logged in. And it makes me wonder why we don't just call them logged out and logged in. An administrator is a role that I change the name of on almost every single site I build, because most of my sites actually have administrators, and none of the administrators really need the administrator role. They need a subset of the permissions that role grants. And so I almost always rename that role to a super administrator or developer or something that's a higher level than an administrator. I know when I worked for chapter 3, we used to name the like user 1 user Hal or something, because it also had that sort of godlike permission where it overrode everything else. I think the administrator role, now that it has that same power, needs to have a name that reflects that it's more than just an administrator. So just some ideas about
like super user in Unix, although that's presumably too nerdy for.
Yeah, I think super admin or super administrator would be fine, or something like developer. I don't know. I use developer because often that role is given to developers, but we can bike shed on the names and the issues. But I would just love more feedback for other people about what they think about changing the names of those roles. And that issue in particular is issue number 3509. There's also a bunch of other stuff that Gregory came across from the usability studies, including removing anonymous and authenticated as roles that get permissions, and instead just setting the site up to automatically handle those. I think that's an interesting idea, but I also know that it would break everything. And so I would want to push that to 2.x, even though it might be possible for us to do it with backwards compatibility. I wouldn't want to make it change that drastic without people being aware that something like that might happen. And I'm not sure that it's possible to do that in a way that's backwards compatible to do it in the 1.x cycle. So I think it definitely is worth talking about, especially trying to get to the root of what the confusion is with user roles. But it is sort of an exciting drastic change. And then there's some other stuff too, just usability issues with using the user roles settings in Backdrop that I think are valid, that he ran into while he was working on some of the other stuff. So if anyone's interested in looking at that meta, it is issue number 3508 in the Backdrop core queue. Another thing that Gregory posted a link to while he was working on this is the actual results of the usability studies for Drupal 7. And I think he had a great point that we should review all of the known issues with usability on Drupal 7, because we are so similar to Drupal 7. We've made a bunch of improvements in various little ways, but it would also be good to look at that list and say, these are things we know are issues. How can we help mitigate them in Backdrop, or what can we do to help improve them? And just make sure we've gotten the big ones, and if there's anything in there that we can help adjust even in minor ways to make that experience better, that would be good. So there's a link to that in the agenda. It is d7ux.org if anyone wants to take a look at that site. I'm not sure how recently it's been updated, but I know the site launched when Drupal 7 launched as sort of a, we did all these studies, we know all these issues, here's our to-do list, here's our done list sort of thing. It would be great if we could, now the Backdrop's years old, it would be good to take a look at that and say, how much of this have we solved and where are we in terms of known issues that came out 9 years ago. So that's all we have for usability. Design issues, I don't think we've had any progress on these issues recently, but there's adding predefined color schemes to Basis. I think we have color schemes, they need usability testing. So if somebody wants to run those through a site to check and make sure we have high enough contrast, that's the only remaining thing there. There's an issue that needs feedback on the user login page or the password reset page. That's one page where we show these tabs to people on the front end of the site. The tabs are something that appear in Drupal and Backdrop on the back end as sort of a way for administrators to edit anything, but in most cases they don't appear to people on the front end. So logged out users don't usually see them, logged in users do. This is one place where logged out users see them, and I think it's something that is very telling. Like when you go to a login page, you're like, oh, this is a Drupal site, or this is a Backdrop site, because you see those tabs. And I would love to make that go away so that people just see a website, but changing the way those tabs are handled on the user register page is something that might affect existing sites. And so I would love to get some feedback on that as to whether people would think that would be good because now those terrible tabs are gone from their site, or they think it would be bad because they're like, oh no, I need those tabs. I think it'll be good, but other people have concerns that, what are we going to do with the information? I wanted to put them in a nicely styled bulleted list on the page so that the links were still there, but they didn't look like tabs. We could put them, horizontally below the form, separated by something cute like dots or vertical pipes or spaces or whatever. But yeah, just trying to handle them in a way that is not tab-like, I think would be beneficial. So I think there's a pull request there if you want to test it. And the last one is the maintenance page in Basis isn't themed. I ran into the maintenance page in 7 the other day. I think it was when I was running updates, and I was like, oh, this is a cute design. We should just copy this to Basis. So I think that's sort of where we're at, is we should copy that to Basis. There's also some room for some improvement there if anyone has any design skills and wants to do something really cute with the maintenance page, like perhaps with a dragon juggling dragon eggs or something. But also we could just have a great background. That'll be fine. Anything's better than what it is now. So that's issue number 2528, if anyone's inspired to work on that. And that is it for issues to talk about during this meeting. We have another meeting coming up soon where we're going to talk about non-user experience issues for Backdrop Core. But yeah, do you have any other thoughts today, Luke, about stuff we should be working on user experience-wise for Backdrop design?
Yeah, probably, but none are jumping to mind at first. Some thoughts about the dragons. How do we feel about dragons that aren't drop? Like are we dragon inclusive, or is it drops domain?
So I think like drop is flexible in terms of what they look like. It could be like, most of the images of drop we have right now is sort of baby drop, but we don't know what drop's going to look like when drop gets older. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of what people want to do with what drop looks like. I think in terms of dragons, we should stick to one dragon, but it doesn't have to look like drop looks like now. It should be close enough that drop can grow into other versions of drop, but it doesn't have to be.
Maybe drop's family and friends, or
yeah, we could do drop's family and friends. Just the same
universe, right,
same kind of animal. Drop's friends, I mean, Drop's friends don't have to be the same kind of dragon. They could be a different kind of dragon. But yeah,
they can't be 3D.
Well, that would be interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think in terms of the number of dragons we put in core, we should keep it to a minimum, because people are going to be seeing this, and we don't want to like overly brand, you know, someone else's website. So I think like anything we have on the administrative side is fine. I think the cute dragon we have in the footer is fine. Minimal dragons, publicly visible, is okay. But to that end, they should be consistent. Like if we're going to have one on the update page or one on the one in the footer, they should be the same kind of dragon. They don't have to be in the same pose. They don't have to be the same, you know, but they need to be the same, that you recognize, like, oh, that's the Backdrop dragon.
All right, so the reference to before, it's not so much a dragon juggling dragon egg for it's drop juggling dragon egg.
Or a drop like dragon.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think there's room for fun, but it does need to be like professional fun, not like all the dragons having a party. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what unprofessional dragon fun would look like, but I am not a designer. But yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there for doing something cuter than just a gray background, which is what I would do if I was going to do it. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. If someone comes up with something really compelling, we'll be like, yes, that has to go in. That might be a dragon party. I don't know.
Right. All right.
All right, well, let's go ahead and wrap this meeting, and we'll go ahead and start the other one. Thank you, viewers, for watching. Thank everybody who is going to watch this later. And if you have any feedback on designer usability issues, go ahead and use the issue queue, Twitter, the contact form, however you can figure out to let us know what needs to get done. We can try and get it done. Thanks for coming, Luke.
All right, bye-bye.